Good morning, everyone. Myself, Professor Vijay Babu. Today, I would like to present a video lecture on the topic transaction management. So, this topic, transaction management or transaction processing, perhaps is the last unit or last chapter of database management systems, DBMS. So, this particular session comes under CO4 of our syllabus. So this is session number 21. So session number 21 of CO4. So the topic name is transaction management. What are the issues that are present in during a transaction, and also what are the states of a transaction. So we'll discuss all these things in this particular video lecture. Before we proceed and discuss the details of the topic, let us say various issues of this particular transaction processing, let us formally present the aim of the session. So the aim of this video lecture is to know or to familiarize the students with the basic concept of transaction management. And coming to the instructional objectives, there are certain instructional objectives, like first of all, the students are going to be taught with the concept of transaction, and then main operations in a transaction, popular examples of transaction processing issues, and transaction states. Next, coming to the learning outcomes, at the end of the session, the student will learn about the transaction processing issues and the states of the transaction processing. Let us formally define and try to understand the meaning of transaction. A transaction is a set of logically related operations done on a particular database. A set of logically related operations. Normally, there is a misconception about the transaction definition, that is, a set of operations. Every set of operations doesn't consider, and they need not be considered or will not be considered as a transaction. Every set of operations will not be considered as a transaction unless they are logically related. So that's why this is very, very important definition. You can see logically related operations. Suppose if you do a particular set of operations, let's say 10 number of operations, all those 10 number of operations should be logically related. So logically unrelated operations doesn't constitute a transaction. So here the transaction is a set of logically related operations done on a particular database. A transaction is an action or a series of actions. An action or a series of actions. Normally, a transaction is performed by a single user to perform operations for accessing the contents of the database. When a transaction is done on the database, then the database will be updated. So these days, we will come across various transactions in our day-to-day life. So many transactions, like banking transactions, online purchasing activities, or online, let us say, e-commerce activities, banking activities, online banking or net banking transactions. So net banking activities. So all these activities comes under the examples of this particular transaction activities. A successful transaction can change the database from one consistent state to another. This is a very, very important point that to be noted about the transaction. Whenever you perform a transaction on the database, whenever a transaction is being performed on a particular database, the state of that particular database changes from one consistent state to another consistent state. This is very, very important. One consistent state to another consistent state. This is very, very important. For example, what is meant by changing one consistent state to another consistent state? I would like to take a simple example of ATM transaction. ATM transaction that is being done for a particular banking activity. In an ATM, suppose you have a balance of, let us say, 1000 rupees in your account, and out of 1000 rupees, if you want to withdraw 500 rupees, normally after doing all the operations and completing the transaction, you will get that 500 rupees successfully as cash, and before the transaction the database shows a balance of 1000 rupees, and after withdrawing that 500 rupees, that database should show the balance of 500 rupees. So before the transaction 1000 rupees balance, and after the transaction 500 rupees balance. So these two states are actually consistent states. Okay, so that is the main objective, that is the main result or outcome of a transaction. So that's why you can see a successful transaction can change the database from one consistent state to another consistent state. So this point to be noted and very, very important as far as the transaction outcome is considered. Let us extend this particular transaction concept a little bit further. For example, a transfer of funds from a checking account to a savings account looks like a single operation from the customer standpoint, but within the database system, however, it consists of several logically related operations. Similarly, usually a transaction is initiated by a user program written in a high-level data manipulation language like let us say typically SQL, or the programming language like C++ or Java with embedded database access in JDBS or ODBC. A simple example of steps or the sequence of steps that are involved in a particular transaction. First of all, let us consider the banking activity. Let us say the first activity is reading the account balance. So read your account balance, that is the step number 1. Step number 2, deduct the amount from your balance. Step number 3, write the remaining balance to your account and read your friend's account balance. Add the amount to his account balance, write the new updated balance to his account. So that means here what we have done is we have transferred some account, some balance or some amount from one account to the another account. That means two friends bank accounts have been involved in this particular activity, transfer of balance activity, transfer of amounts activity. So what are the steps that are involved? What are the operations that are involved? We call them operations. Here in this case we have 6 operations. How many operations? 6 operations. So these 6 operations actually constitute a transaction. So these 6 operations, you can remember, you can see, you can notice that all these 6 operations are logically related. So they are actually logically related with one another. For example, reading the account balance and deducting the amount from your balance, both are logically related. Similarly, write the remaining balance to your account and read your friend's account balance. So that means, first of all, if you want to transfer the amount to your friend's account or anybody's account from your account, actually you are supposed to see whether enough or sufficient balance is available or present in your account. So that's why the first activity will be reading your account balance, because without the balance you cannot do any operation. You cannot transfer balance, you cannot transfer amount to your friend's account. So that's why you can notice that these 6 operations are logically related. So that's why you can see the above 6 operations are logically related and forms as a single unit that constitutes a transaction. So I repeat once again, here all these 6 operations together will constitute a transaction. This is very, very important. Please remember. So they are not separate. So all these 6 operations together will constitute a particular transaction or a single transaction. Let us consider an example. To have better clarity on transaction, let us consider an example of transferring balance in terms of these operations. Suppose the account A has